The ascent the ladder trembled beneath Emily Carter's heavy boots as she climbed the final 20 feet to the lookout tower's cabin. 3 years as a fire lookout in Blackwood National Forest, and yet each ascent still sent a shiver of unease through her gut. The metal rungs, slick with morning dew, gleamed faintly in the pale light. Below, the vast expanse of Blackwood stretched out like an endless sea of green, its pines and firs swaying gently in the breeze. Home sweet home, Emily muttered under her breath as she reached the platform. The cabin door creaked open with a familiar groan, revealing the 14 by 14-foot space of glass and steel that would be her summer residence. At the center of the room stood the Blackwood Firefinder, a mechanical compass-like device, its polished brass edges catching the first rays of dawn. Windows encircled the cabin, offering a panoramic view of the forest. Perched 75 feet above the ground, Emily could see for miles in every direction. First day on duty, Emily dropped her pack onto the wooden floor and retrieved her radio. Channel 7, always Channel 7. The device crackled to life with static. Base, this is Emily at Tower 19, starting my shift. The response came quickly. Copy that, Emily. Good to have you back for another season. Check in every 4 hours, as usual. The voice belonged to Michael Reynolds, her radio contact for the past 3 years. Emily smiled faintly. Michael knew she was dependable. Any special instructions this year? She asked, settling into the routine. A pause lingered longer than usual. Actually, yes. There have been some incidents in your sector. Nothing major, but we need you to follow the protocols to the letter this season. No exceptions. Emily frowned, her fingers tightening around the radio. What kind of incidents? Just stick to the rules, Emily. They're posted on the wall, same as always. The radio fell silent. She glanced at the wall where the safety protocols hung, written in neat block letters. The same 5 rules she'd seen every season. Never leave the tower between sunset and sunrise. If you hear 3 knocks, do not open the door until the 4th. Keep the radio on Channel 7 at all times. If the firefighter spins on its own, record the direction it stops. Never look directly at the tree line during a full moon. The rules had always struck Emily as peculiar. The knocking rule, in particular, seemed absurd for a tower isolated in the wilderness. Who could possibly knock on a door 75 feet in the air? But she'd never questioned them. Rules kept you alive in the forest. They ensured safety. Memories of the first season 3 years ago. During her first season, Emily had asked her predecessor, Thomas Bennett, about the rules. Thomas, a grizzled veteran with 20 years of lookout experience, had been nearing retirement. When she mentioned the knocking protocol, his expression had hardened. You follow every single one of those rules, Emily, he'd said, his voice low and serious. Doesn't matter if they seem foolish. Doesn't matter if you think you know better. These mountains are older than any of us, and they have their own ways. But who'd be knocking on a door this high up? Emily had pressed. Thomas had stared past her, his eyes fixed on something she couldn't see. Wrong question, kid. The right question is, what happens if you open the door too early? He'd offered no further explanation. 3 months later, Thomas suffered a fatal heart attack while hiking in the valley below. His replacement, Director William Hayes, took a starkly different approach. Modern, scientific, and dismissive of what he called old superstitions, Hayes treated the rules as outdated relics. Emily's first week passed uneventfully. She scanned the horizon for smoke, recorded weather data, and checked in with base every 4 hours. The solitude was a welcome reprieve after months in the city. No traffic, no deadlines, no crowds. Just her, the forest, and the boundless sky. A strange shift, but this year felt different. The forest was quieter than usual. In past seasons, Emily had grown accustomed to the constant hum of life, birds chirping, squirrels scurrying, wind rustling through the pines. Now, an eerie silence blanketed the landscape. Even the insects seemed subdued, their usual buzz absent. On her 4th day, she raised the issue during her radio check-in. Base, this is Tower 19. Any reports of wildlife disturbances in this sector? Negative, Tower 19, came Michael's reply. What are you observing? It's more what I'm not observing. Hardly any animal activity. No bird calls for 2 days now. A pause. Could be natural migration patterns. Nothing to worry about. But Emily was worried. 3 years as a lookout had taught her to trust her instincts. The forest was trying to tell her something, and she wasn't listening closely enough. The first knocks on Tuesday morning, while updating her logbook, Emily froze as 3 sharp knocks echoed through the cabin. Knock, knock, knock. The sound came from the door, clear and deliberate. Her pen hovered over the page. Rule number 2. If you hear 3 knocks, do not open the door until the 4th. She sat motionless, ears straining. The forest below was silent. No birds, no wind, not even the faint rustle of leaves. The quiet pressed against her like a physical weight. She waited. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. No 4th knock came. Cautiously, she stood and peered out the windows. The forest stretched unchanged in every direction. No hikers, no vehicles, no signs of life. Her nearest neighbor, Tower 12, was 15 miles north. No one could have climbed up without her noticing. She grabbed the radio. Base, this is Tower 19. Did you send anyone to my location? Negative, Tower 19. You're alone up there. Why? Emily hesitated. How do you explain knocks on a door 75 feet in the air? Never mind. False alarm. Copy that. Stick to the protocols, Emily. That night, she ensured she was inside before sunset. The forest was safe, and she was experienced, but those 3 knocks had rattled her. She heated a can of soup and watched darkness seep between the trees. The full moon rose, casting a silver glow over the landscape, transforming the forest into a stark interplay of light and shadow. Emily brewed coffee and settled into her chair with a book, a thriller about a detective hunting a serial killer. The full moon's shadows the book held her attention briefly, but her eyes kept drifting to the windows. In the moonlight, the tree line looked different. The shadows between the trees were deeper, sharper, almost forming shapes, like figures standing just beyond the forest's edge. She caught herself staring and forced her focus back to the page. Rule number 5. Never look directly at the tree line during a full moon. She'd always assumed it was about preserving night vision. Staring at bright moonlight could make it harder to spot distant fires. But now, doubt crept in. Was there another reason? The words in her book blurred as her gaze wandered back to the windows. The shadows did resemble people, dozens of them, standing motionless in the dark, watching the tower. Emily snapped the book shut. This was ridiculous. She was a professional, with 3 years of solitary forest work under her belt. She didn't jump at shadows. But when she glanced out again, one shadow had moved closer. Grabbing her binoculars, she focused on the tree line. Through the lenses, she saw it clearly, a human-shaped figure in dark clothing at the forest's edge, facing the tower. Too far to discern details, but unmistakably humanoid. Her hands trembled as she lowered the binoculars. She'd broken rule number 5. She'd looked, and she'd seen. The figure raised an arm, waving slowly. Emily stumbled back, knocking over her coffee mug. Hot liquid spilled across the floor, filling the cabin with the acrid scent of burnt coffee. She grabbed a towel and knelt to clean it, keeping her back to the windows. When she finally looked up, the figure was gone. A sleepless night's sleep eluded Emily that night. She sat in her chair, the open book forgotten in her lap, listening to the forest. Every creak of the tower, every whisper of wind, every distant animal call made her flinch. The radio stayed on, its occasional bursts of static a small comfort, proof she wasn't entirely alone. Dawn crept in slowly, bathing the forest in hues of gold and green. In the morning light, everything seemed normal, peaceful, safe. Emily brewed fresh coffee and tried to convince herself the figure was a figment of her imagination. But when she opened her logbook to record the morning weather, her blood ran cold. In her own handwriting, in the previous night's entry, were words she didn't recall writing. Movement observed in tree line. Figure identified. Protocol violation noted. She stared at the page. The handwriting was hers, but the ink was darker, black, not her usual blue, and written in a blank space she'd left. Flipping through the logbook, she found every other entry normal, written in her familiar blue ink. Only those 3 sentences stood out, in a black ink she didn't own. Her hands shook as she reached for the radio. Base, this is Tower 19. I need to report a situation. Michael's voice crackled through. What kind of situation, Emily? Someone was here last night, in the forest, watching the tower. A long pause. Did you follow the protocols? I looked at the tree line during the full moon. I saw someone standing there. Another pause, longer. Emily, listen carefully. The rules are there for a reason. They're not suggestions. They're not guidelines. They're the only thing keeping you safe. Safe from what? From making the same mistake as your predecessor. The radio went dead. Emily called base 3 more times, but no one answered. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk circling below. She spent the day poring over the tower's records, which spanned 30 years. Most lookouts returned season after season, but her predecessor, Daniel Harper, had worked only one season. His final log entry, dated exactly 1 year ago, read, "Equipment functioning normally. Weather clear. No fires reported. Personal note. The rules don't make sense, but I'm starting to understand why they exist. Some things are better left alone." There was no record of why Daniel left. No forwarding address. No contact information. It was as if he'd vanished. A new voice that evening. Emily radioed base again. A different voice answered, a man she didn't recognize. "This is base. Go ahead, Tower 19. Where's Michael?" "Michael Reynolds. No one by that name works here. Are you reporting a fire?" "I've been checking in with Michael for 3 years. He's the communications coordinator. I've been the coordinator for 5 years. There's no Michael Reynolds in our system." The radio cut off. Emily sat in the darkening cabin, staring at the silent radio. Either base was playing an elaborate prank, or something was deeply wrong. Neither possibility was reassuring. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in reds and purples, she locked the door and checked the windows. The tree line was visible, but no figures stood there this time. Just trees and darkness. She prepared dinner and tried to act normal. The rules were straightforward. Stay inside after dark. Don't answer until the fourth knock. Keep the radio on channel 7. Record any unusual firefinder movement. And don't look at the tree line during a full moon. Simple, logical, safe. But as night deepened, Emily realized the rules weren't just about safety. They were about survival. And she was beginning to suspect she'd already broken too many. The fateful knocks at 11:47 p.m., the knocking began again. Knock, knock, knock. Emily froze in her chair, listening. The knocks came from the door, deliberate and patient. She counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then, soft as a whisper, came the fourth knock. The door handle turned. She lunged for the door, slamming the lock into place just as the handle stopped. The door rattled once, testing the lock, then fell still. She pressed her back against the wood, struggling to steady her breathing. Someone was on the platform outside. Someone who knew the rules, who understood that 4 knocks meant she had to answer. "Emily." A voice called through the door, familiar and friendly. "It's Daniel. Open up." Daniel Harper, the previous lookout, the one who'd disappeared. "Daniel's gone," Emily said, her voice trembling. "He left a year ago." "I never left, Emily. I've been here the whole time, following the rules, waiting for someone to join me." The voice was wrong, too flat, too calm, like a rehearsed script. "Where have you been living?" "In the forest. There are others here. Many others. All the lookouts who came before. We take care of each other now." Emily crept to the window and peered down. A tall figure stood on the platform in the darkness, possibly in a ranger uniform, but its face was obscured, as if shadows clung to it like a mask. "The rules keep us safe," the figure continued. "But only if you follow them exactly. You've been breaking them, Emily." Looking at the tree line, questioning the protocols. "That's dangerous. What happens if I keep breaking them?" "Then you disappear, like the others, like Daniel Harper." The figure raised its head, and Emily stepped back. The face was wrong. Too pale, too smooth, like a photograph faded by time. "Open the door, Emily. Let me show you how to follow the rules properly." She grabbed the radio and switched to channel 7. "Base, this is Tower 19. Emergency. Someone's on my platform. I need immediate assistance." Static crackled. Then, impossibly, Daniel's voice came through. "Base doesn't exist anymore, Emily. There's only us. The ones who follow the rules. The ones who stay in the forest forever." The decision, Emily dropped the radio and backed away from the door. The handle turned again, slowly testing the lock. The metal creaked under pressure. "The rules are simple," Daniel's voice continued. "Stay inside after dark. You broke that rule on your first day. Don't answer until the fourth knock. You did that right tonight. Keep the radio on channel 7. You're doing that now. Record any unusual movement of the firefinder." She glanced at the firefinder. It was spinning slowly, its brass needle tracing lazy circles. She'd never seen it move without wind. Grabbing her logbook, she recorded the direction it stopped. "Due north." "Good," Daniel said. "One more rule, Emily. Never look at the tree line during a full moon. You broke that 2 nights ago. That's when you saw me. I saw someone waving in the forest. You saw what you weren't supposed to see. The others, all the lookouts who came before. We've been waiting for you to join us." The handle stopped turning. Footsteps crossed the platform, slow and deliberate. Emily rushed to the window and looked down. The figure was descending the ladder with unnatural smoothness. No haste, no urgency, just patient, mechanical progress. When it reached the ground, it walked into the forest and vanished among the trees. Emily spent the rest of the night barricaded in the tower, pushing furniture against the door and windows. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to shift. When dawn arrived, she was exhausted and trembling. At 8 a.m., the radio crackled. Tower 19, this is base. Please respond. She seized the radio, desperate for a normal human voice. Base, this is Tower 19. I need immediate evacuation. Someone was here last night on the platform. Emily, this is Director Hayes. I've reviewed your reports. You're under significant stress. Isolation can play tricks on the mind. This isn't stress. Someone climbed up here. Someone who knew the rules. The rules are safety protocols, Emily. They're designed to keep lookouts healthy and alert. Isolation can cause hallucinations, paranoia, sleep deprivation. It's more common than you think. Then why did Daniel Harper disappear? A pause. Daniel Harper completed his assignment and returned to civilian life. He works for the Forestry Service in Montana now. I can give you his contact information if you'd like. That's not possible. He was here last night. He said he never left. Emily, I'm sending a helicopter to pick you up. You need medical attention and a psychological evaluation. This job isn't for everyone. No, Emily said, surprised by the firmness in her voice. I'm not leaving. Not yet. That's not your choice anymore. The helicopter will arrive at 1,400 hours. Be ready. The radio went dead. The helicopter and the final test. The helicopter arrived precisely at 2 p.m. Emily heard the rotor's distant thumping long before she saw it, the sound growing louder as it approached. Through the windows, she watched it circle the tower once before landing in a clearing below. Two people disembarked, a pilot and a woman in a ranger uniform. They looked up at the tower and waved. Normal, human, real. Emily grabbed her pack and headed for the door. It was time to return to civilization, to make sense of what was happening. But as she reached for the handle, she stopped. The firefinder was spinning again, faster now, its needle whirring around the central post like a confused compass. She watched for 30 seconds until it stopped, pointing due north. She opened her logbook and recorded the direction. Then she noticed something else. The entry she'd written that morning was gone. The page contained only routine weather data. She flipped through the book. Every mention of strange sounds, mysterious figures, or broken rules had vanished. The logbook looked like it belonged to a normal, uneventful assignment. Someone shouted from below. The woman was calling her name, asking if she was okay. Emily looked down and felt a chill unrelated to the mountain air. The woman looked exactly like the voice she'd known as Michael Reynolds. She keyed the radio. Base, this is Tower 19. I need confirmation on the identity of my pickup team. Tower 19, this is Base. Ranger Reynolds and Pilot Johnson are authorized to transport you to headquarters. I thought there was no Michael Reynolds in your system. I never said that, Emily. Please proceed to the landing zone immediately. Emily looked at the helicopter again. Michael Reynolds was still waving, her smile patient and friendly, just as Emily had imagined during 3 years of radio conversations. Behind her, at the forest's edge, dozens of figures in ranger uniforms stood watching the tower. Emily understood now. The rules weren't meant to protect her from the forest. They were meant to protect the forest from her, from what she might see, what she might report, what she might remember. The helicopter crew wasn't here to rescue her. They were here to ensure she followed the final, unwritten rule. Never tell anyone what you've seen. The final choice. Emily picked up the radio one last time. Base, this is Tower 19. I'm staying for the full season. I understand the rules now. That's not possible, Emily. You're showing signs of psychological distress. You need immediate medical attention. I'm showing signs of understanding, and I choose to stay. She turned off the radio and watched the crew below. They conferred for a few minutes, then climbed back into the helicopter. The rotors spun up, and they lifted off, circling the tower 3 times before landing in a different clearing, still visible through the trees. They weren't leaving without her as the sun set. Emily prepared for another night in the tower. She locked the door and checked the windows. The firefinder sat motionless in the center of the room. The radio remained silent on Channel 7. Outside, the forest was alive with movement. Figures walking among the trees, always just visible enough to be noticed. The helicopter crew had joined them, their uniforms blending into the shadows. At 11:47 p.m., the knocking resumed. Knock, knock, knock. Emily sat in her chair and waited. The fourth knock came exactly 60 seconds later. The door handle turned. This time, she didn't resist. She stood and walked to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the lock. Emily, Daniel's voice called. Are you ready to follow the rules? All of them. Forever. Emily opened the door. Daniel Harper stood on the platform, tall and pale, wearing a ranger uniform that looked freshly pressed. Behind him, Michael Reynolds smiled and waved. The rules are simple, Daniel said. Stay in the forest. Watch the tower. Keep the others safe. Help them understand when their time comes. What happened to the real Daniel Harper? He learned the rules, just like you're learning them now, just like all the others. Emily looked down at the helicopter crew waiting at the base of the tower. They gazed up with patient expressions. Behind them, dozens of other figures stood among the trees, all former lookouts, all following the rules. Do I have a choice? You always have a choice, Emily. You can fight the rules and disappear forever, or you can accept them and stay in the forest. Help us keep the next lookout safe. Emily thought of Director Hayes, waiting for her return, of the Real Michael Reynolds, wherever she was, of the families of all the missing lookouts who would never know the truth. What if I refuse? Then you become like the others you've seen, those who broke too many rules. They exist, but they don't really live. They're just echoes. Emily glanced at the logbook on the table, the blank pages where her true experiences should have been recorded, the stories that would never be told. I'll stay, she said. I'll follow the rules. Daniel smiled, the first genuine expression she'd seen from him. Good. The next lookout arrives tomorrow. Her name is Sarah Ellison. She's young, eager, experienced. She'll do well if we help her understand. What do I tell her? The same thing I told you. The rules are there for a reason. Follow them exactly. No exceptions. A new beginning. Emily nodded and stepped onto the platform. The forest stretched below, dark and endless. Her new home, her new responsibility. As they descended the tower, each rung of the ladder seemed to pull her further from her old life and deeper into something she didn't yet fully comprehend. Daniel walked beside her, his footsteps silent on the metal platform. How long have you been here? She asked. Time works differently in the forest, he replied. Days blend together. Seasons cycle past, but we're always here, always watching, always ready. Do you ever miss your old life? Daniel paused and looked at her. In the moonlight, his face seemed more human than before. I missed it at first. My apartment in Portland, my girlfriend Laura, my job at the forestry office. But that life feels like a dream now. This is real. This is purpose. They reached the base of the tower. The helicopter crew waited, but they looked different now. Their uniforms were clean and pressed, but their posture suggested they'd been standing there far longer than a few hours, days, perhaps weeks. How many of us are there? Emily asked. Michael Reynolds stepped forward. 47 active members. We staff 12 towers across the region. Some work in the main office, handling communications and paperwork. Others maintain trails and equipment. Everyone has a role. What about the families? The people who wonder what happened to us? A new voice spoke. A tall man in a supervisor's uniform emerged from the tree. They receive explanations, he said. Medical emergencies, job transfers, personal decisions to start new lives elsewhere. The paperwork is always perfect. It was Director Hayes, but like the others, he seemed both familiar and wrong. His features were correct, but his expression was too calm, too knowing. You're all still doing your jobs, Emily realized. Just not the way the outside world thinks. The Forest Service continues to function, Hayes said. Fires are spotted and reported. Weather data is collected. Trails are maintained. We simply serve a different purpose now. Daniel handed her a small notebook. Your new logbook. Real entries this time. Truth instead of weather reports and fire sightings. Emily opened it. The first page was filled with unfamiliar handwriting. Day 1. Emily Carter has joined the community. Transition proceeding normally. Sarah Ellison scheduled to arrive at Tower 19 tomorrow morning. Standard protocol will be followed. Who wrote this? Your predecessor, Michael said. The lookout who worked Tower 19 before you. He's been tracking your progress and preparing for this transition. Where is he now? She pointed toward the forest. Patrol duty, ensuring no hikers or campers wander too close to active tower sites during transition periods. He'll introduce himself when you're ready. A new home that night. Emily lay in a small wooden cabin that looked freshly built. Inside was a comfortable bed, a wood stove, and shelves lined with books. Photographs of strangers, clothes that didn't fit her, a coffee mug with "World's Best Dad" printed on it. These belonged to James Thornton, Tower 19, 2019 to 2020, Michael said. He'll collect them when he's ready. For now, use whatever you need. Emily sat on the bed, processing the day's events. That morning, she'd been a fire lookout, grappling with what she thought was psychological stress. Now, she was part of a secret community of former Forest Service employees living permanently in the wilderness. How do you handle supplies? Food, medicine, equipment. The same way we always did, Daniel said. Requisitions, supply drops, maintenance schedules. The paperwork is filed, the supplies delivered. We just intercept them before they reach official destinations. Daniel appeared in the doorway. You should rest. Tomorrow will be challenging. Sarah arrives at 0800 hours. She'll be eager to start her new assignment. What do I tell her? Nothing at first. Let her settle in. Follow normal radio protocols. Answer her questions about weather procedures and fire spotting. Be helpful, professional. When do I mention the rules? When she asks. She'll notice them on the wall eventually. Tell her their standard safety protocols. Don't elaborate. Let her draw her own conclusions. Michael sat in the room's single chair. The process takes 2 to 3 weeks. First, she'll think the rules are odd but harmless. Then she'll notice things that don't make sense, small inconsistencies, strange radio communications. Finally, she'll break a rule and see something she can't explain. Then you help her understand, just as Daniel helped you, as someone helped Daniel. Emily lay back and stared at the wooden ceiling. How many in the Real Forest Service know the truth? More than you'd think, Daniel said. Directors, supervisors, communications coordinators. They're not part of our community, but they understand the arrangement. They know certain positions have high turnover rates. They know certain sectors require special protocols, and they're okay with that. They're okay with keeping the forest safe, however that needs to happen. A soft knock came at the door. Michael opened it to reveal a young woman in a ranger uniform. Emily, this is Rachel Summers. She was the lookout at Tower 12 until last month. Rachel smiled and waved. Welcome to the community. I know it's a lot to take in. How long have you been here? 3 weeks. I'm still adjusting, but it's not as bad as you might think. It's better in many ways. No paperwork deadlines, no performance reviews, no dealing with tourists who think they know more about forest safety than you do. She was right. Emily already felt a peace she hadn't known in years. No stress, no deadlines, no pressure to be anywhere else. The hardest part, Rachel continued, is letting go of your old life. But eventually, you realize this is your real life. Everything before was just preparation.